Pro Audio Secrets, a show that helps you to find your own voice in sound.
Field recording is so much about, I just consumed as much information as I could from all the sort of greats, Ben Burt and Randy Tom.
First advice is as much as possible if you want to be a field recordist.
Game audio is also a bit more sort of shoot from the hip.
People might not agree with you.
Schedules and budgets are ridiculous. You don't have.
So I was kind of forced to, and you cannot do it like that if you want to be on A level.
I think we really hit some really key points.
So welcome to my podcast, Pro Audio Secrets. Today I have Tristan Horton with me, a renowned sound designer. So thanks for being with me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Can you introduce yourself, what you're about?
Yeah, I'm a sound designer and field recordist, originally from South Africa. I'm now living in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I work a lot in game audio as well as wildlife documentaries. And I've also done a lot of field recording for sound libraries for Boom Library. So I began recording sound effects for Boom Library in around 2011 or so. So I've kind of been lurking in the background as this whole rise of independent sound effects with A sound effects and all those sorts of portals have gone from strength to strength. The first library I ever worked on for Boom was the Medieval Weapons Library, recording fire and some arrow buys and that sort of stuff for Axel and the guys in Mainz. And yeah, I've just continued to do so. I've recorded various different animals, horses, birds of prey, seals, lions, tigers, hyenas, all those sorts of things, as well as car recordings, like the everyday cars and the SUVs and vans from Boom. I had a great deal of work in that. Also the dirt bikes. Just a whole range of different recording projects, and I think that's what we're going to sort of dig into and find the sort of like commonalities between your craft and my craft.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what you just described is basically the stuff that everyone really dreams about recording. I mean, recording fire, recording animals, and also the Everyday Cars library. When I was a sound effects editor, I was just like addicted to this library because it made my life so easy. So I was always wondering about the processes of how these things are being done. You mentioned you were you're originally from South Africa. So did that place of living has had a positive impact for you, being able to record those animals, for example?
There's definitely a lot of advantages from field recording is so much about what you have access to as well as locations. In South Africa, your access to wildlife is much greater than in Europe. In Europe, if you're going to go record wildlife, it'll be more like a zoo setting where you have enclosures and you have reverb and ambience and resonance and lots of other animals around. In South Africa, you often have, I try to really go more to rehabilitation centers rather than sort of touristy places, which is also great because then you have less humans making noise around. But you still run into the issue of there being other animals around. Often there'll be a chicken somewhere, and or a wood pigeon or something like that. But yeah, so there are a lot more wildlife rehabilitation centers in South Africa.
When we go a step back, how did you become a sound designer? What did sparkle your interest into sound in the first place, living in South Africa?
My origin story is a pretty common one, I think, in our industry. I started in a music sort of setting, being in bands during my teen years, and being in like a hip hop group, like playing beats and that sort of stuff out of Ableton Live, like on stage, which was super sketchy in the early 2000s. I knew that I had a interest in music and an interest in the technical side of it as well. So I went to university and did a music degree there, but it really focused on what was then called electroacoustic music. So using the studio, DAWs, synthesizers, multi-track recorders, and that sort of thing in a musical context. And that's where I got my sort of feel for the technical side of music. And then went on to recording bands and that sort of stuff at a recording studio for a little while, recording bands, recording some rock bands, but then also a lot of sort of gospel bands and pop stuff. Realizing that wasn't really where my heart was, like to make a viable career in the music that I enjoyed was not feasible in South Africa. So I started to go more and more towards my own music production, and then from there getting into post-production, and slowly sort of winding my way much more towards sound design, field recording. It sits really well in my sort of balance of interests. The technical side, the creative side, just sort of drew me in. There's that like ephemeral nature to sound and sound design, which I really enjoy.
So how did that really happen from becoming interested in post-production and sound design, field recording, to the opportunities that you have had, such as recording stuff for Boom Library and all those legendary libraries you did?
It is actually quite an interesting little story. So I had started recording, this must have been around 2009 or so. I'd started getting a location recorder, like one of the old Fostex 2-track, and some microphones, and started recording my own material because I really enjoyed that process. And I'd been aware of Boom Library. I think they'd released the Cinematic Metal and maybe the first Firearms library, and then they'd released the Wildcats library. And I got that library, and I was listening to it, and I could hear that while it's super useful material, there are quite a few of those recordings where you can hear that that is done in a zoo setting, and you can hear a bit of the ambience, and they work really great for monster designs because you can make those sound massive, but not necessarily for an actual lion or tiger. It's and then what actually happened was Axel sent out an emailer on his own personal email address by accident, instead of the usual sort of.
So Axel's
the creative director of Boom Library, and the sort of one of the founders. And I think he just accidentally, instead of sending from do not reply at Boom Library, he sent it out from his own email address. And I thought, oh, right, there's an email address I can respond to. I wrote back an email and said, hey, I love what you guys are doing. If you ever want to come to South Africa to record animals, I'm super happy to host you guys. You can come around. You can stay at my house. I'll help you. I just threw my hat in the ring. Didn't really expect anything. And then a couple of days later, I got an email from Axel saying, "Hi, I don't know how you got my email address, but we are currently recording all these medieval weapons, and we aren't allowed to make any big fires in Germany at the moment. It must have been like the summertime. Can you help us?" And I'd never recorded fire recordings before, but I'd read a lot about that and consumed as much sort of information about how you go about that. And I just went, yes, I can do that. And then and then proceeded to figure out how to do that.
So you basically took an opportunity that was there and made the most out of it.
Yeah, I put my hand up. I put myself out there with zero expectations of anything sort of coming from that, and it was just being present and being available.
Because you witnessed and was part of the whole evolution of sound effects libraries, creating them, also selling them. You mentioned A Sound Effect, which was like the platform, or still is, for individual sound effects creators to put it up there and to use that platform to sell sound effects there. how do you see the business model for, let's say, a sound designer to get into that field of work now?
It's a very interesting question. You can see that there is a sort of sort of a terminal velocity that needs to be reached in terms of how much material you have out there. I think that's, you can see Boom is just they're going at full steam and producing so much content, especially now with Boom One, which I've contributed some material to, but in order to make
One, what is that?
The Boom One, their general library. So they have a subscription model where I think every month they have it's a massive library, but every month they if you're subscribed to it, you get new material. So they're ferociously recording and sourcing new material for that library, which is incredible. I think at this point the competition is so vast with the number of suppliers and publishers that are putting out new material. There is incredible stuff. As a business model, I don't know how profitable that is until you get a certain sort of body of work out there. I don't think you can expect to record and publish like one or two libraries unless they're incredibly specific and needed. I think it's a difficult to make that your primary source of income at this point with the amount of competition.
For example, Tonsturm is maybe an example of those niche libraries that they created stuff that wasn't there on a very high quality level.
Yeah.
So they got their recognition for that, I guess. But even them are now also looking into creating apps and plugins and software, because the libraries themselves doesn't seem to cut it anymore.
Yeah, Boom's also going in the same way. Like they're making pretty impressive VSTs and plugins, which is it's great. Or I mean, the opposite direction, I guess, is Pole Position, where they have they're incredibly good at recording, especially vehicles and firearms and that sort of stuff, and they do those incredibly comprehensive, specialized libraries about, like, so if you have a film or a game that has that specific vehicle, you can get a library from them that has the full coverage. But then again, their body of work is massive.
I get that, and in field recording in general is a very specific type of work. So, what are the key learnings that you have from your vast experience of what do you recommend people who start out on recording their own sounds in the field to do?
So to answer the last question first, just record, whether it's a small little handheld recorder or even your phone. The more you record things, the more you'll understand how microphones react in different locations, proximity. Just record as much as you can. It's one of the beautiful things about this sort of craft is you can, if you continue to practice it, you incrementally get better and better and better and have a deeper understanding. It really you after a while you can look back and see the cumulative results of applied practice. It's a fantastic thing to witness within yourself. Some of the key understandings about this are, especially with, if you're going to do a very specific project, say it's recording vehicles or it's recording animals, you need to, we can break those up. It's actually probably better to break those up, but you have to do quite a bit of research, a lot of planning, a lot of scheduling. You've got to be very good at communicating. There's been several projects where it's you can hit a brick wall if you not strategic in the way that you approach people for access, and figuring out what for especially in areas where maybe in Hollywood there's a lot more sort of infrastructure that's designed around access to animals for filming. And if you want to go record there, they've got a price list. Okay, you want to record a cougar, it's this much per hour or whatever it is. All the projects that I've done have not been that. I've been probably the first person to approach anyone to go like, hey, can I bring a microphone and record your honey badgers or whatever it is, and sort of discuss that and see what they sort of feel about it and expect out of it and what sort of like remuneration that they would want from it. And there's always discussion around that.
So communication is key.
Yeah.
In order to prepare your project. I remember a story from Mattia Celotti. I hope I pronounce his name correctly.
He's incredible.
I worked with him.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I worked with him on Avatar for Ubisoft for a couple of years now, and he got that library out about explosions in a mountain area because he wanted those reflections, those original reflections from the mountains. And he basically described that it was incredibly difficult to get the permissions of recording those explosions because of so many possible things that could go wrong. And then after releasing or sending out the first emails and telling the people like, look, I want to do explosions but I'm really careful. And so framing all the danger in the mail, he got all the rejections. And then he kind of, changed the narrative more into the good things about it and not really worrying people up front too much about it. And that's how he got into getting the permissions in the end.
Yeah, that is definitely a very important lesson to learn of how you frame your communications, especially like to get your foot through the door for that first step for them to be able to get a sense of also like who you are in a way, so that they know that you're not just coming there, like especially like for animal recordings, you're not coming there to antagonize the animals and cause them sort of distress. Having discussions very very much upfront about that is key, and that's a very wise framing in terms of showing all the positives before you start talking about the negatives.
In terms of doing the actual job, because I just rarely did some field recordings. For example, I did a couple of Berlin libraries, like about the sound of Berlin, let's say. In my years there, when there was like an off time or something, then I just, took the field recorder, a couple of microphones, went out and captured like the key sounds that I was always like looking for in my sound design, the tram and the subway and the specific rail kind of creaking at a certain place. And so I did all those things, but there's this routine you get when you do it more often. And if you don't have it, like, it's like, okay, I forgot to press record. Or the first ever field recording I did was like a choir in front of like an audience. So I put like a couple of microphones there and had like a sound devices 788. And the end result was I didn't record because it didn't record. I don't know. I wasn't too familiar with the device. So what is like? Do you have like a kind of checklist or something that is in your mind? Like, okay, I do this first, then this, and I have double checked that so that you are kind of like functioning on a very like effective level.
I have similar stories to that, and actually more recent ones of also, especially using when you're using gear that you aren't familiar with. I'm using mostly sound devices throughout my like entire professional field recording life, so I'm very familiar with those. So those feel quite natural. But I had a similar one where using a Zoom recorder, and I'd set up a session recording seals, and I had a Sennheiser MS rig, but then I also had the Sanken CO 100K. And I just had not hadn't armed the record track for the Sanken, and I got back to the studio and went, this is supposed to be three channel file. Why is there only two? And then realizing, oh, okay, that's my user error. You've got to be a little bit consistent with your gear checks, your cable checks. Like keeping batteries charged is also a major consideration. And then also, like once you've actually recorded stuff, data wrangling and labeling things and queuing things. So I love the new mix pre's, the Sound Design mix pre's, because you can connect on most modern ones. You can connect with via Bluetooth, and you can really sort of do the file name conventions and file naming really clearly and cleverly and quickly, but I still also always do an audio cue at the beginning, a little slate of like what I'm recording. So if something goes wrong, I'll at least have that as well. Things
so
like
recording, like you mean the sound devices have Bluetooth, so you connect it with your phone and then you do the naming convention just quickly with the phone.
Yeah, through the Wingman app.
Okay,
that's really really handy. But yeah, still revert back to an audio cue. Audio slate in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think also making sure you have your SD cards ready and waiting and clean before any big session. Getting a list of gear of what you're actually going to take with you, and just making sure that all of that is functioning. But also then having spares, having spare mic cables, because you never know, something can happen, especially with like vehicle recordings. Often you're threading little lav mics. The deep, I've got a bunch of the DPA lav mics, and those are super strong cables, but you are threading them through crevices and parts that move, and you can easily sever a cable. So it really depends on the scale of your project. If it is, if you've gone through a lot of effort to reach a location or paid a lot of money to be at a location, it really sort of makes you really, take that more seriously. I've also have my sort of run and gun setups ready to go. So if there's something interesting happening outside, or some weather event, or one of those sorts of things, I can quickly go out and grab it. Yeah, I think it depends on the. For me, it depends a bit on the nature of the project. If it's vehicles or if, that sort of stuff, that my attentive level to gear and setup is a lot higher than on a sort of more relaxed project.
I get that. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. What I heard is that it's important to have like your batteries ready, your SD cards ready, your gear ready, that you like are awake and really check if all your channels are enabled and that you are familiar with the gear you're using. And another thing that I learned from recording a rubbish disposal truck, because we had a movie about those people that work in that field. So it was like A-list starring with German actors film about the Berlin rubbish disposal company.
Yeah.
So we wanted to record that truck to get all the different sounds for the movie. And then I went there. I had also a couple of DPAs, put them in the cockpit, and then we recorded everything. And once we were done, the driver of the vehicle, he helped me unmounting all the microphones. So he just took the DPA from the window and gave it to me. And I think he somehow crashed the cable. So the microphone was gone.
Yeah.
500 euros or something. And that was my learning then, like, okay, do the technical installment yourself, because you know the gear and you have to pay for it. So did something like that happen to you? Some of those learnings, like painful learnings?
I've luckily had not that many gear. I think I've been very precious about that. I've really made sure that I myself or somebody that I really trust with it is doing all of that, because I could foresee those sorts of things happening. People just don't really have an understanding of the fragility of some of that equipment.
Okay, so you were just a bit smarter than me.
No, well, I've had incidents that got relatively close to losing a lot of gear. I was recording honey badgers in South Africa. This is one of the issues that you run into often with recording animals, that you're not going to go out and to find a wild animal, because you'll waste so much time, and it's just actually not worth the effort to do that. It's so unpredictable, so many other noise sources. So you go to a location where you know you'll have access, but that also means that all these animals are human to custom, so they don't necessarily react in the normal way. And these honey badgers have a massive reputation of being sort of grumpy and ferocious, but these ones are well fed and a bit lazy. So the only way that I could get a bit of reaction from them was to bring the microphone, the blimp, like really, really close. So I've got these the Rycote Cyclones on the end of a boom pole, trying to get as close as well to sort of bring the mics as close as possible to the sound source, but also just that would annoy them. And I got really good at getting it out the way just as they would pounce on it, except for the one time where I ended up with an entire honey badger like clinging to the cyclone on the end of the boom pole. And I realized that if she didn't let go, those microphones would belong to her, because I wasn't going to be the one to explain how I let a honey badger escape from its compound up a boom pole.
Just one question, like, what is a honey badger? What's honey badger? Yeah? What's that of an animal?
It's a little bit like a wolverine. It's sort of, I think it's closest to a wolverine or a Tasmanian devil. It's fairly small, but it's incredibly ferocious, and it's famous for being able to fend off lions that try and attack it. And its favorite food is black mamba. It's one of the most poisonous snakes in Africa, and it'll actually let the black mamba bite it, and that would absolutely kill a human. But they just sort of sleep it off and then finish eating the black mamba when they wake up from their little nap. They're incredible creatures, and they make this most bizarre alien chittering sound and these like vicious growls. So we recorded a bunch of those for, I think it was for the Callisto project. We did a creature source library through Boom for the developers, and it's a weird sounding creature.
So, as you mentioned in the beginning, that just start recording no matter with what device. I have like a little story about that. When I was in South Africa, actually in Muizenberg, which is next to Cape Town, I had like a little walk to Kalk Bay, which is like the next village. And there's like a crossing, like you have to go like really close to the ocean. And there is like a railroad that is basically at eye level of you. So I had that little Zoom recorder, and I wanted to record like the train passing, because I could basically, get the recorder like half a meter from the rails away. No problem. So I was like really into that, focused, and then the waves hit the coast, and sometimes it broke over to the passage, and I forgot about that. And then 1 second later, like I'm getting hit from that wave from behind. So that I remember that moment so vividly, because I thought, okay, now I'm getting wet. But then it didn't end, It just was this first hit of water, and then it just continued pouring. Like, I don't know, it felt forever. Like, and then of course the recorder was gone, and I still have that recording, like, where like there's like just an end to it. And that was also like very let's say traumatic experience, because then I had to walk back the whole way to my place soaking wet, and everyone laughed at me.
Yeah, salt water and recorders don't mix very well. That's a surefire way to ruin your recorder. But Yeah, I mean, that brings up a interesting sort of topic that I've had in my head a little bit is how do you relate to like auditory memory? Like, do you? I find this. One of the first sort of field recording experiences or little sort of like projects that I tried. I went to go record a bunch of freight trucks down at the harbour in Durban. I was working on a theatre piece which had prominent sort of theme of these freight trucks moving around, and every time I go back to that recording, and I used it recently in a game that had a freight truck. Every time I go back and I listen to those recordings, I can immediately be placed back into that setting, sitting across the side of the road. It's the strangest thing that. For me, there's like, I wonder. I'm curious to know if there's similar things for you. It is obviously those sort of earlier memories are maybe the strongest because they're not as diluted with all the sort of recordings. But for so many recordings, if I listen to them, I can be placed back into that exact moment. It's a bit of a freaky thing.
I cannot relate as much as you because I have not the amount of experience, but when I'm thinking about it, I think for me it's kind of similar because when I just recall the days of recording ambiences in Berlin, like those days are like really vivid to me still, and the moments I captured that exact sound, like even without listening to it, I have like a very strong memory, although it is, I don't know, more than 10 years ago.
Yeah, there's something fascinatingly ethereal about sound and how it can evoke sort of memory and connotations and I really enjoy playing with those sort of concepts in sound design. But yeah, I wonder if it also like engenders me to like prefer some of the sounds that I've recorded just because it has a personal sort of resonance in my memory. So it's the interesting phenomenon.
So another question, when you think about people that are getting started in sound design and they want to make a living out of it, to break into the industry or just to be creative and make a living from it, I was wondering myself, like, how can you use field recording techniques in order to promote yourself or to get out there in the world? Do you have any recommendation for people what they should do in order to get a spot or a spotlight that people could listen to what you're actually doing?
I always feel like a bit of imposter syndrome about that, and sort of being able to recommend to people how to do it, because there are so many pathways to doing it, and it depends where you are in the world and where you are in your skill development. Yeah, it's a tricky one to answer. Maybe answer it in a tangential way, which it's kind of relates back to what I really appreciate what you're doing. I feel like growing up in South Africa and starting my career in South Africa, that one of the things that I really struggled to find was mentorship. There were no people that I could directly interface as a mentor, and back in the sort of like early 10s, there wasn't that. There was starting to be sort of audio communities online, but not really to the level of doing mentorship. So I think what you're doing with your mentorship program for the Foley teachers is a wonderful resource for people to jumpstart that part. I feel like it took me a long time of sort of research and self-discovery and experimentation with not necessarily like a huge amount of direction to figure those out. I just consumed as much information as I could from all the sort of greats, Ben Burt and Randy Tom, and all the incredible sound designers that have sort of created this sort of craft. Any sort of article, any sort of video, sound design breakdowns, just being sort of as knowledgeable about that as possible. But yeah, I feel like trying to connect with people in the industry and learn through that is pretty critical.
I listened to a podcast from Akash, and it was with the Fat Rat. He's like a music producer from Germany as well. I didn't know him before, but he's really killing it out there. And he started like just giving out his music for free for a long time. And then, some game developers who used it like became really successful, and then things got back to him. And I have like two things that I can relate to this kind of thing. First off, the library that I did about the Berlin sounds, I was employed at a post-production facility, and they had like a couple of picture editing suites for like film editors to work there with the directors, and they were of course connected to the local network, and they started to pick sounds from that library for their movies because it was in Berlin. A lot of stuff was shot in Berlin. However, the sounds kind of got into rotation, and then editors also took the sounds into their personal library, editing at different places. So I had then like sound effects editors that freelanced at our place that then basically said, look, those sounds are really good. And it turned out that those were my sounds that I initially recorded for that post-production facility, and that they kind of made their round. And the other thing now is I'm doing a couple of like, I call them Foley premium hacks. And then I just show a process of how I recorded a couple of sounds, and then how I designed the sound with those recordings. And then I put out the library behind it for free. And this also is a great asset for me, to get in touch with people, because if they want to have the library, they can then reach out to me and leave their email address, and I can ask them if they want to be on my email list, yes or no. So, and my hope or my dream is that those sounds then just get used, in productions, and people starting to appreciate it. So that is a way I'm trying to, promote myself at the moment.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that the idea of if you're offering value without necessarily an expectation of anything to come from that, and that's definitely the most authentic and in the long run most effective way of getting yourself out there.
We can basically say from our experience, just doing what we love and being aware of what's going on, and try to connect with people, and try to reach out, and try to learn, and just be who we are and do what we love. That is maybe the essence of it. What I try to really internalize at the moment is that it shouldn't be about the money. Because, of course, we all have to make a living. And so many of us, we started out as musicians and then transitioned into the sound effects, sound design industry because we had to make a living, and it was still close to what we love. And it is what we love. For me, for example, it became a real passion that I can equally enjoy, like making music. But I had like a discussion with Robert Dutzig the other day, and he basically said, like, the difference between you and me, you just mentioned the word job and the word money 3 times within our conversation, and I didn't. And to get into that mindset that, okay, it is a job, fair enough, it is something I can make a living of, maybe more easily now than with making music, still it is about the passion and the love I have for that, and that is way more important than getting the money. So that is something I'm really struggling with at the moment, and I want to get to that point, that. But it's so difficult for me because I have now this studio, I have like a lot of stuff that I have to pay for, and then just detach from all that, and for me also believing in God, being assured that the provision for that is gonna come no matter what, there will be some food for me and a roof over my head. that is something I'm really struggling with at the moment. And I recall when we had a conversation, you also said like you were like thinking about what to do next and staying a freelancer or being employed. So can you maybe share a little bit about your like situation at the moment and how you feel about this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a super valuable thing to talk about, and I do love that we sort of plan to talk about sort of all the technicalities of field recording, but we've really veered into the sort of philosophical heart of what we do, which is it's wonderful. Yeah, so I've moved from South Africa to the Netherlands just over 2 years ago, and in the interim also had a baby. Well, I didn't have the baby, but my partner had a baby. But so sort of caring for him and spending a lot of time with that. Yeah, being in a new country now, I'm really working towards just building up a network, building connections, and I'm in a position where I feel pretty happy about what I'm doing, but that there is a certain element of financial insecurity, of not knowing exactly, like my calendar is not booked out sort of 6 to 12 months in advance, and I know exactly where the money is coming from. I just sit with the belief that I do have a set of skills, and I have a network that has provided enough opportunity for me to this point, and it is often those I'll sit and get into a sort of fairly negative headspace of going like, I don't know where it's going to come out, where the next bit of work is, and then luckily in most cases it's at that point that I get an email or a request of like, oh hi, we have this project coming up, are you available? So I'm at the point of being content but ambitious to sort of build my my career a bit into something that feels a little bit more stable. That's my situation now, and it takes a long time. I've been here for 2 years. I mean, probably the first year I was very slow in terms of doing that because I was spending more time with family. But yeah, it's important to realize that those networks, those connections, and making a breakthrough into industry, it takes a long time.
And you have to put in also the time doing the craft, exactly, because you said, for example, first advice is like record as much as possible if you want to be a field recordist. And I can also say that for being a Foley artist, I was lucky, or like I had the opportunity to work as a full-time Foley artist in an employment situation. And the good thing about it was that they feeded me with work like day after day, like day in, day out, week in, week out. I was just busy recording every day for 8 hours, and I was lucky to get paid for it. And with my previous experience, I was also able to pull it off. But those years basically gave me the foundation, to what I'm doing right now. Maybe more teaching stuff or showing people how I do it. And still, there are so many things that I'm learning every day, and sometimes I realize people might not agree with you how you do it. For example, I'm using that one foot technique, like I'm walking people with 1 foot. And that was not because I always wanted to do it like that. I was kind of forced to, because I never had a proper studio where you can use the whole of your body weight without destroying your signal. So I was kind of forced to use that technique with 1 foot. And I got kind of incredibly effective with it. And now that I have this room here, I can basically do it with both feet as well. And I tried that and it works for me. But people kind of challenging me into, you cannot use a 1 foot technique because that is being spotted by experts. Like all the A-list directors will hear that. And you cannot do it like that if you want to be on a A level. And okay, people tell me that, but I also incorporate that feedback, but still I'm internally convinced that my sounds are, good enough, even if I'm doing it with one foot. And I'm also confident enough to show it to the world, although I'm receiving this kind of feedback from the people I look up to. So it's only so much you as a person or I as a person can do in order to live, let's say, true to our purpose. Because I never got the chance to work on a huge, big Warner Brothers Foley stage, but I still made it kind of work up to a level that I could deliver sounds to, AAA games in a very unideal situation, but still I delivered it to the liking of my client. And that's basically the achievements that I was able to have in my life, in my career. And that's what I share. And yeah, so being authentic I think is the most important thing you have to do at this day and age if you want to expose yourself to social media.
Yeah, I think there's definitely different ways to achieve something, and there's the old adage of like, if it sounds right, it is right. There's no, yeah, I think especially I think game audio is also a bit more sort of shoot from the hip, Wild West kind of. Often schedules and budgets are ridiculous. You don't have the time to do it in the sort of quote unquote correct way. You've got to just get it done and make sure that it works. And I think there's a lot to be learned from the sort of correct way of doing it. But yeah, you've got to get it done and you've got to get it works for you. I can
So maybe to finish, I know we wanted to talk about the specifics and the technicalities of field recording, and I also think we did it in a way that we get those important learnings that we had personally out there for people who want to start out. So what do you wish for yourself in terms of you being a sound person and being involved in that work field? And what do you wish for the industry of the sound industry for the future?
Well, you're coming with the deep hits this morning, like the deep questions. For myself, looking forward to like more incremental growth, more connection, and working on more projects and connecting with more people within the industry. I think this conversation and our sort of like interactions have been emblematic of how I really enjoy sound people. If that doesn't sound strange, like I can't even think of an exception of where I've interacted with somebody who's in this work, in this craft, and isn't just has so many wonderful qualities that I really sort of connect to, and often so generous with their time and information and sharing. It's a wonderful community to be part of, and I hope to continue to contribute to it. And on that note, I need to give a shout out to the field recording Slack. It's a fantastic, it's one of the most wonderful online communities I've ever been involved with, and there's just a wealth of information and camaraderie. We can maybe put a link somewhere that people can get in contact with that, and that's great as well because they always run crowdsourced libraries, which is becoming one of my go-to sort of sources for new material, and that just really prompts you to go out and record a lot more. So that I just want to continue to contribute in my way to the industry, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. For the industry as a whole, I think more focus and more care about the mental health of people that work in the industry, of recognizing that the stress placed on not only sound designers but especially in the game industry is severe, and having a lot of compassion for that, I think is critical, and for people to take their mental and physical health really seriously if they're continuing to be in this industry. Beyond that, I think there's my viewpoint is not wide enough to offer a sort of opinion on what the industry needs.
I appreciate it so much that you made the effort to think about it, and I think the thing you highlighted is very important for the whole industry, that people are burning out, that people are uncertain about their livelihoods and all those things. So that's very important for the whole industry, and thank you so much for taking the time, for sharing with me, with us. It's really a wonderful time we had together, and I want to thank you.
Yeah, and the same to you. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and I think we really hit some really key points, and it's I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I really appreciate that you listened up until the end. If you haven't hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you watch or listen this, please do so now, because it helps the channel to grow. And I see a lot of value in Pro Audio Secrets for the whole Pro Audio community, especially to people who want to start out in the industry and looking for their first role or their first paid gig. Definitely look into finding your own voice in sound. That can change over time. But look at what it is now, and then take a step towards that and try to elevate this thing that you have within you and get the sound out of yourself, your unique sound. That is something you need to find in order to succeed in pro audio, especially these days. And again, this can change over time, but you have to start looking within yourself what's really the thing that you can provide for the world in terms of your sound, okay? If you're looking for more advice like that, please feel free to reach out to me via DM on Instagram, comment the word industry, and then you can book a free mentorship call with me. We're also building Pro Audio Academy up from the ground right now, and you can join that as a beta tester, or later on, once it's rolled out, you can just come in and learn with us. Thanks for watching. Maybe watch another one now or later. See you then. Thanks. Peace, the Foley Teacher.